This short video tutorial is to give you an insight into what is required for the post-delivery assessment requirements for Leadership Assignment 3. So throughout this recording we'll be looking at the criteria which is highlighted in green. First we'll look at the P6 criteria. That will be achieved by completing the performance profile of the participant's performance. This is one performance profile sheet which you'll be able to get from Moodle. It is clearly signposted, so you should know which one it is, and within it you will be reflecting on the whole group of participants' performance and making a summative analysis and assessment of where you score them for the various different elements within that performance profile. Once you've completed that performance profile, you'll come on to this element which you can see here, which is the third page of the assignment workbook. The left hand column which says aspect, you write in each of these 10 rows one of the aspects which is written on the outside of the performance profile. Whatever score you've given, you'll put in this second column, and as it indicates at the bottom, you may have highlighted scores 7 to 10 as strengths and therefore scores 1 to 6 as areas for improvement. Make sure whatever you decide, if it is 7 to 10 as strengths, it may be 6 to 10 as strengths and therefore 5 to 1 will be areas for improvement. The score should match whatever you highlight. If it's a 6 and you've highlighted 6 and above as strengths, you will write strength in this column. If it is 5 and below and you've identified those scores as areas for improvement, you'll identify it in there. This is important for when it comes on to the merit and distinction requirements. Staying with the pass criteria, at the moment you can see a table similar to the one below it on page 3. This one's a little bit more confusing. Initially you will have completed for task 1 part A, a performance profile on your own performance as a leader. This is where it's important for you to write all of these aspects in this left hand column, and then from that initial performance profile of your own leadership performance, write the scores within the initial score column. That's all you need to do from that point. However, after you've delivered, you will need to have completed a second performance profile on your leadership performance, which should, in theory, show some improvements. Whatever you score yourself on that performance profile, you will need to include those scores next to the relevant aspects in the recent score column, this third column. The difference column is quite straightforward. It is simply looking at the initial score and the recent score. If you have an initial score of 6 and a recent score of 7, then your difference will be 1. However, if it is an initial score of 5 and a recent score of 5, your difference will be 0. If the scores were negative in terms of there were no improvements and you feel that there was a decrease in performance, such as 8 and 4, you would not have a score of 4, you would have a score of -4. Very much like the previous table, which is below in page 3 of the workbook, this column is a little bit smaller, so all you have to do for strength is write S, for area for improvement write AFI. Now, whether you put strength or area for improvement, that is depending on what you have in the recent score column. So the difference column is the one which is slightly confusing. That's just to get you to see, have I developed or not. But your recent score of 7, if that's a strength, you write S. If 5 is an area for improvement, you write AFI, as is if 4 is an area for improvement here, you would write AFI in there. The next page in the workbook is task 3, which looks at your merit criteria. So this is where we're looking at the highlighted M4 criteria: review the performance of the participants and self-explaining strengths and areas for improvement. First I'll come on to explaining our own strengths and areas for improvement. And so what you can see here is a box which gives you the opportunity to write and explain the strengths of yourself as a leader. Now here we're looking for our top 3 strengths, if there are more than 3, and explaining the reasons how and why these are your strengths, which will relate to your performance profiles in the table I've previously mentioned. Here you might look for a collective reasoning. One strength may relate to another strength, and there might be a collective reason for both of those strengths. For instance, your communication and your confidence might link well together, which might be a reason because of your previous experience in coaching and leading. If we scroll down a little bit and just have a look at the next box, the bottom half of that page is set out exactly the same. However, you need to explain the areas for improvement of yourself as a leader. Again, explain how and why these are areas for improvement which relate to your scores. So, for example, I've scored communication as an area for improvement because, and then your reasonings why. And that might relate directly to your performance in your practical assessment or your general communication skills. However, if you do have communication as a strength, note that it cannot be an area for improvement as well. The difference in this, to complete this part M4, is the last line here. Additionally, you will need to provide details to explain opportunities to develop as a leader. Now, opportunities will come in the following. It may be going on a leadership training course. It may be shadowing an experienced leader. It may be video recording yourself as a leader and watching that back and trying to work on those improvements. It might be peer observation, so observing a classmate who you feel is a little bit more advanced than you as a leader, or someone who is an existing leader. It could be mentoring or obtaining ideas. It might be something which is practical, which will have an impact and a positive impact to help improve you as a leader, to guide you to develop your leadership skills. The next part of the M4 criteria is very much like what we had to do for ourselves as a leader, but this time we are explaining the strengths of the participants. Again, the big key up here, how and why these are strengths, which will relate to the performance profile. So what did the participants do well? Did they abide by the health and safety rules of the leadership session? Did they have good technical performance? Why? How was it good? So give some reasons to explain that. As we scroll further down, the M4 completes where we look at, again, our participants. We're looking at the areas for improvement this time, but the key is that, again, just like in our own leadership performance, we give the how and why, the detailed reasoning. That's often the part which is quite straightforward. This difference, and just like we had as a leader, additionally you will need to provide details to suggest and explain at least 2 opportunities for the participants to develop. Would this be something along the lines of one-on-one coaching? Would it be observing professionals in that sporting setting? Would it be to join a club, a community club? Would it be to seek coaching and mentoring, or have one-on-one support from a leader? Think of something which will enhance the element of the participants, maybe as a group or as a team, or even for individuals. But again, we should be talking about the collective group. Okay, so to complete the M4, you have identified and given 2 suggestions of areas where the participants can improve and develop. For the D2, we're looking at justifying those suggestions made. So this is the important part of giving the depth and information for at least 2 of the suggested opportunities to develop. So if you set these out clearly in separate paragraphs within this box, there's the whole page to go for. You might not use it, but be clear and logical in your justification. And within this, we're looking at, if you have suggested the participants join a club, a volleyball club, if your session was based on volleyball, then give reasons how and why that would improve their performance. It might be because it would improve their technical performance, which you've highlighted that was weak, their tactical performance, which might have been highlighted as a weaker score also. And really think about the suggestions for the M4 and the justification to relate to those areas for development for the participants from the performance profile that you've completed, filming participants in your session.